But all right, we're 5 minutes in, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna share this screen, and then you're gonna be my go-to this whole time now. So congrats.
Okay.
This is now a one-on-one. We just act like no one else is here. It's just you and me. So here's what we're gonna do. So I haven't even seen this class. I mean, I went through the material to update it because you'll see there's quite a bit in here that's um, dated, and I intentionally left a lot of it in there because I want to highlight the difference between what it was even just 5 or 6 years ago to what it is now. Um, but were you here for the other two power sessions as well, like for the first and second one?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Okay. Then what we're going to do, basically exactly what you said, as far as like in your business, you need to like kind of get the lead generation, or you've been working on getting that going to pick up more clients. That's what all this is about, right? Like the first one's kind of an introduction. The second one is about prospecting. And now we're going to talk about marketing, and we'll talk about the differences, those as well. As you and I had kind of said at the beginning, that I'm Jason Flynn. I'm the team leader over in Fremont. And one thing about me though is that like I love everything marketing. So when the office reached out saying, is there one of these that I'd want to teach? I was like, marketing. That's the one that I love kind of the most, especially using technology in marketing, right? Digital marketing, social media marketing. And so that's why I think this was interesting going through this and going back and seeing, what is maybe dated in this. Like, as you can see in the bottom corner there, this was last updated in 2015. So it's like, what is dated? What even feels ancient? But then I can bring in this perspective of saying, okay, here's what we can kind of do now. Right. And so, like I said, it was actually pretty interesting. And I intentionally left the slides in. You'll see some comments in blue. Those are my comments that I've added into there. So we can kind of see as we go what changed in this world of marketing in just 6 short years, or I guess seven years. So we're going to talk about marketing for lead generation, because we'll kind of talk about the difference of what's marketing for branding versus marketing for lead generation. How do you define your brand? How do you market your brand? How do you market a listing specifically? What is systematic marketing? And then how to kind of put it all together. This is scheduled for 2 hours. I do not think we'll go that long unless we just unless we take so many tangents and rabbit holes down the side. I really don't think we'll be going quite that long. There's a lot of activities that they build into this, and those as well. I think we're probably going to end up, we'll talk about them, but we'll kind of gloss over them a little bit more. It's a little bit easier when you have like a lot of interaction with those, but we'll kind of see when we get there. So I'm going to skip past this. I do like this question though. Where are you today as far as like lead generation activities? This isn't necessarily one that you have to answer, but I like this question of, what did your lead generation look like yesterday? Like what did you do yesterday? Or what did you accomplish today so far, since we're starting this halfway through the day, right? I think that's kind of I literally might even put that as like a little sticky note on my monitor, right? Of what was your lead generation yesterday? And I was recently talking to one of our agents in the office who has been very dedicated around his 20 contacts a day, 5 days a week, to have 100 contacts in a week, right? And I've noticed, we went to mega camp, and since we got back from mega camp, he's been you can tell he's a little like offbeat from the rhythm that he had. And I asked, well, how many contacts did you make yesterday? This was last week. I said, how many contacts did you make yesterday? Oh, I only made 10 yesterday. Okay, how many have you done today? None so far. Okay. What about the day before? And then all of a sudden he starts to realize like the whole last week he had only done 60 where he had been doing 100. So it's easy to kind of get off that rhythm sometimes, right? So I think that's just a good mental check-in of what did I do yesterday that actually fell into my 20%, the 20% of my activities that are going to lead to 80% of my results. What did I do? And then that bottom question there is, what will I do differently in the next 24 hours? Maybe that check-in helps you realize like, okay, I didn't quite hit my goal yesterday. Or today even, so tomorrow's going to be different. And this is what I'm going to do. It says right there, what's the most difficult part of these activities? I would also ask, what was difficult about getting those contacts done? Like what got in the way what can I do tomorrow to remove those same barriers? Like for me personally, it was always, I had to go to the office. If I tried to do it at home, it wasn't getting done. Right. So that was just my personal one always. So what we're talking about is becoming a relentless marketer, right? So what we're going to talk about are not only what different avenues are there, but why you should be using different avenues at all times. At the same time, we also have to work on some things cost money. We don't want to throw all our money into something. We want to lead with revenue, right? We want to work on the pieces of our business that are going to become the most effective, but we also need to focus on multiple things at the same time. This is a breakdown for this course. Since Conrad, since you said you weren't here for the last two, you can see where we're building this like not Coliseum, I forget what these are called, but we're building this building, right? So it started off with validity and positioning. How do you position yourself in front of your prospects or your clients? And then prospecting, and then now marketing. And we'll talk about the difference between those two and how we need to do both of them, but we might modify how much we're doing of each. And then you can see what's coming up next is leveraging your database, working Mets, farming open houses, FISBOs, and expireds. And every one of those things, even though this was written a little while ago, every single one of those things are still very relevant today, right? And I'll hear agents say, oh, open houses are dead. I'll hear experienced agents say they won't do their own open houses because they don't get anything out of it. Wrong. They're just going about it wrong, right? And we touch on open houses in here a little bit, but just every one of those is still a very relevant thing in today's market. And that's what I like about this course is it's getting back to the basics a little bit. Let's see. Also, feel free at any time, chime in, or if someone wants to drop something in the chat, I'm keeping an eye on it as well. All right, so marketing for lead generation. This is a very odd analogy, but I kind of like it. So if you're baking bread, you need all these different things. You need your Mets and your haven't Mets, right? Those are everyone you've met already. So the people in your sphere, the people you have in your CRM, and then your haven't mets, which might be in a farm, might be a demographic of people, right? Like you said that you had worked with, was it specifically underprivileged youth, or was it just anybody of all ages?
No, well, I worked I worked from anywhere from the wannabe gang member at 12 years old all the way to somebody who just did 20 years in prison.
Okay, got
So
it. So the whole
it was all,
gamut.
it was across it all.
Right. So then that your haven't mets could be in that demographic then at some point, right? Like as they're going through a life transformation, right? They might then be able to get to the point of becoming a homeowner. And that's where those are your haven't mets because you can relate to those people, right? So then we're going to add in prospecting and marketing. And again, we get into that. And then the habit. And this is that part I was talking about with the other agent of having that habit of doing it every single day. You know, we always talk about success is simple, not easy. It's doing it. It's simple. Talk to 20 people in a day. It's not easy doing that 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, or call it 48 weeks a year. Take some time off. But anyways, you put all those together and you have success, just like baking bread. Odd analogy, but I like it. All right, so for what is marketing? This becomes much more passive than prospecting, right? So prospecting is where you're probably picking up the phone and calling people. You're out knocking on doors. You are out looking for the buyers and sellers instead of waiting for those buyers and sellers to come to you, right? So we call that prospecting, much like a gold prospector. He's actually out there digging for the gold. But on the marketing side, it's more passive, where instead of going out for that one-to-one relationship, we're putting out kind of more broad mass marketing, casting a very wide net, trying to catch as many people as we can in that net. Okay, so we're looking at attracting the business and the buyers and sellers to come to us instead of us going out there and finding them. Disadvantages, one that they listed is that it's expensive. And that is traditionally a way to think of marketing, is that it's expensive because they're thinking about magazine ads, billboards, TV ads. Like, yes, those were expensive things. And we're going to talk about some ways that are actually now free, right? Or we can either have free or the cost of them has come down for the ones that are pretty effective anyways. And that's thanks to technology. It's less personable and memorable, but we'll also talk about that. We'll talk about how like connecting with someone over marketing on YouTube can actually make you extremely personable and memorable, and it's free. And those people, by the time they have watched your videos and decide to call you, they already feel like they know you, right? And so same with social media. So it can actually now be very personable and memorable, less immediate in its results. I would say that's, especially compared to prospecting, that is it's going to be very true, right? Because it's passive. Advantages, efficient use of time. Again, if we're talking about like the YouTube analogy, or using YouTube as an example, in that I can create one video a week, spend a couple hours on it, and that can be all my marketing for that week, right? Like it's a lot easier to spend a little bit of time and get it out to many more people, and then reaches a larger audience as well. Like I said, it's a wide net that we're casting with one activity, which is pretty nice. Let's see. So the truth about marketing is, hold on, let me make sure. The role of marketing during your growth phase is to supplement your prospecting. And this is where we often talk about the difference between marketing and prospecting, because you could go talk to experienced agents and they say, a well-established agent will say, oh, I have 80-90% of my business, I'm doing 60 deals a year, and 80-90% of my business is coming from past clients and referrals. Well, great. They've now been able to move their business to much more marketing based versus hard prospecting based. But when you're on the newer spectrum of an agent, or still developing that business in that growth phase, that's where we actually want to think of the 80-20 rule and say that maybe 80% of my time is spent on prospecting and 20% is spent on marketing, right? Because if I can get 80% of my results from 20% of the time that I spend prospecting, because like what we said on this previous slide, when we said on this previous slide, right, it's more, less immediate results is a disadvantage of marketing. So in prospecting, I'd rather spend a little bit more time prospecting to get those immediate results, because let's face it, I want a paycheck now. I don't, when I'm building my business, I'm not too worried about the 18-month paycheck. I'm worried about the paycheck I'm getting in, 60 to 90 days. So that's why we want to, as new business owners, we want to focus on the prospecting side. But adding in the marketing now, it's like oh man, they should have used a cake for the last one. It's like a layer cake, right? Like we want to layer all these things in. All right, so let's see. For marketing for lead generation, so we could just go put out our brand out there, right? And that's where you see like agents that have bus bench ad signs, right? Or billboards. They're putting out marketing to get their brand or their awareness around them as a real estate agent out there. But there's a difference between when I'm actually marketing for lead generation. It becomes a little bit more like prospecting in a way, right? And so in this little like handwritten note, it's a handwritten note right here. It says, "It's a real pleasure to meet you yesterday. You asked some great questions. Be sure to call me next time you have a real estate question or help buying or selling a home," right? Like it's giving a little bit of a hook in there. And that's where it'll come up again a little bit later, but in the shift book, we talk about a thing called MOFR, make offer for immediate response, right? It's some sort of thing where if I'm marketing for lead generation, I'm trying to give them a little bit of a hook, like fishing with a hook with a little bait on it. I want to say, hey, call me today for the value of your home. I want to say, things like that are helping me use my marketing in order to tell them to do something to call me, right? If they're calling me, then I'm collecting the leads, right? So it sets you apart after prospecting. So you do your prospecting, you have a conversation with someone, say at an open house, and they say they're the neighbor. That's where you're gonna now send them this card, because maybe when they came to the open house, they were a little bit more guarded. Well, you knew they're the neighbor, you knew their name was John and Betty, so you sent them this handwritten note, hey, it was great meeting you yesterday. Give me a call if you want to know about the value of your home, or something like that, right? So we start to blend prospecting and marketing together. Let's see. It's always a numbers game, right? Just like prospecting, marketing is also a numbers game. these response rates that it has in on this chart here are actually still fairly relevant today. Um, if we were to market using direct mail, right, where we're actually sending one postcard a month to a neighborhood, the MREA talks about, or Millionaire Real Estate Agent talks about a 2% return. And that is actually still fairly accurate depending on your markets. They can go up or down from there. I've seen as high as like 500 to 1, where it took 500 pieces of mail. But as you're doing it over time, that 50 to 1 still holds pretty true. That if you're sending a monthly mailer to 50 homes in a farm, you can expect one piece of business out of that, whether it's someone looking to list their home, whether it's someone looking to buy another home. That's just helping you stay top of mind. But then when we're on the phone, it goes a lot more up, or it goes a lot higher than that, up to about 13%. I think now it's probably closer to about 10% is what we see, but still fairly relevant. Of for every 10 dials, I'm having a conversation with at least one person, right? And the pickup rate might be a little bit higher than that, but if they're just hanging up, that doesn't help you much. But you can just see that as we build these different things into our 3-hour daily habit of doing the lead generation, you can see how this just adds up over time. And that's probably the number one thing, is people understanding that this takes time. That 50 to 1 on a direct mail campaign, it's not your first year. That's something that's going to take us probably 1 to 2 years to actually establish. Let's see. All right, so myth number one, there's 2 or 3 myths coming up. Number one is I only need to prospect or market to be successful. But successful lead generation in reality looks like doing a little bit of both. Like I said, maybe when you're first starting out, it's 80% prospecting and 20% marketing, and then that'll shift over time. Or it doesn't even have to shift over time. They're at a mega camp 2 weeks ago, they were interviewing Scott Maloof of the Maloof Group International. They are doing 700 units this year out in Houston, I think they are. Houston, or no, San Antonio. They're doing 700 units, and it's because even though the team has grown, they're not relying on their sphere. Instead, they're leaning hard into prospecting, and they're a prospecting-based team. So they've seen their business double, right? And now this year, we'll see what happens after, with the number of sales decreasing, but they're prospecting-based. It'll probably maybe not double again, but they're going to continue to see growth. The myth number 2, the purpose of prospecting and marketing is to get appointments. But that's a nice end goal, but really this is going to be more about to increase your database of events, right? Like, yes, it's great to get appointments, but it's even better just to get people into your sphere, get them into that Met piece of your database where you're communicating with them 33 times a year based off of the MREA, 33 to 36 times a year, so that then over that longer term, they're turning into more business and more business, because we're seeing about a 10 to 1 for conversion out of Mets, which is obviously a lot better than the 50 to 1. And then myth number 3, any marketing I do builds mind share, but really it's if you don't market repeatedly and consistently, you're just throwing your money away. And so this is, I literally had someone today email me about, or text me about, hey, what do you think about me signing up for this program? It's some marketing program that agents will buy anything. And it's like, no, if you're not doing it consistently, it doesn't matter. Like, just get back to the basics, do the basics consistently, and you'll probably have more business than you can actually handle. I put in blue there, though, that variety is also important, because in marketing, there's a thing about we want you to be seen everywhere. When someone drives through a neighborhood, the reason those bus bench signs work is because that person hopefully already has somewhat of a hold of the market share in that area. So they're getting knocks on the doors, they're getting flyers in the mail, they're maybe even seeing Facebook or Google ads, and they're seeing those bus bench signs, right? So when they're seeing it in multiple places, they start to say, man, I see that guy everywhere. And that's what we're kind of looking for in marketing. But we need that variety, but we need it consistent first, and then we can start adding in multiple layers.
Jason, I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you get a listing which is out of your farm, and if it's in a new area, you get a listing, or you had a buyer that you help buy, let's say in a county that you don't work in, but would you still drop in flyers or do some marketing around that neighborhood one time while you have that listing or while you're in contract, either side? I mean, why would you leave that area? I know it's not consistent. That's not your farm. That's not your typical area. But would you just leave those 100 homes in that area and just move on?
Yeah, I would. So I've come up against that exact thing before where I started marketing to them over time. And it's kind of like, if I'm not ready to go expand out to that area, maybe I'm not going to do it. Right. But initially, like for that listing, because for me, the goal, and this comes from the MREA, but the goal of every listing that I have, I want to go wrap up 2 more pieces of business from every listing, at least one buyer and at least one seller. And if I can get a seller in that neighborhood all day long, like especially if it's piggybacking off of that listing, absolutely, I want to do that. If it's spending the time and the money on a geographic farm and it's outside my area, I don't know if I'm going to do that one. Does that make sense? So like if you have someone say in Stockton and you help them, maybe they're buying in the Bay Area and they're selling in Stockton, and I'm going to help them go sell that house in Stockton. I'm going to do a pre-campaign, a campaign right when we list it. I'll do a just sold campaign. I'm going to maybe start to tweak my conversation there a lot though, to say, and I can sell your home too. Like, look, I just helped your neighbor sell this fast, this much money saved. We used this program to get their home renovated. We did all these things, and I can do yours as well, because I'll take a listing outside my market all the time. But I want to do more than just those mailers, right? Like we're talking about that variety. If I can't go door knock often, if I can't go be part of that community, it's not my farm. So I hope that's a nice convoluted way to answer your question.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. And we are going to talk a little bit too about, this is most of this class today is going to be talking about your brand and marketing your business, but we do have a section on specifically marketing around a listing as well. So it'll be a little bit different. So defining your brand. This one gets interesting because a lot of people think your brand is your logo and your colors, right? Like the colors, like KW, we have a logo and our color scheme is red, gray, white, and black, right? But is that really KW's brand? It might be our branding, but is it really our brand? And our brand is really more, what do we as a company stand for? What is our USP, which is unique selling proposition, right? Like what value do we as KW give to our agents that attracts them to come to our company and stay with our company, right? So now think of it as you as an agent. It's not just your color scheme, it's not just your logo, but it's your unique selling proposition. What is it that you offer clients? What do you, Conrad, do that Nicholas doesn't do, or vice versa, right? What makes you stand out? And more importantly, who is it that you're working with, or who is it that people should work with you that they may not want to meet with Nicholas for whatever reason, right? Like people are going to be attracted to you for your unique things. We just need to build that into your brand a bit. Right? And be open about it and talk about it all the time. Hey, these are the clients I like serving. So like I'm wearing my KW military shirt. I didn't plan this, but most of my business has always been veterans. So I'm going to lean hard into veterans when I'm building a business because I am a veteran, but so I speak veteran. I know the programs better than most agents, and I know the needs, the wants and needs of veteran clients, right? So that becomes my USP for my business, and it's different for every person. But then once you get very, very clear on that, because of the bold law, clarity is power. Once you get very clear on that, it's going to help you build your brand. And then as you build that brand, you will naturally what we're talking about with marketing, you're going to naturally attract business to you instead of you having to go out and chase it. Make sense?
Yep.
Especially, we're going to talk about YouTube a bit probably, and especially on YouTube. It just helps you become more relatable. So that's basically what I said right there. I didn't realize it was on the next slide. It's your strongest value proposition articulated to highlight your uniqueness. So think of that. And then there's also going to be, okay, on this exercise, like I said, I don't really want to take the time now because I feel like we'll just, this doesn't kind of go as well on Zoom, but literally write this down as something that you should do right after this. Right after this class, sit down and actually come up with this. Go list out 3 to 5 things of what's your unique selling proposition that you offer that most agents in your office don't offer, or most agents that or who is it that you specifically want to work with that not every agent wants to go work with, right? Or can even connect with. Like I said, with veterans, non-veteran agents can connect with them, but you have to go learn it. You have to go learn about them. You have to learn the lingo and what their needs are. And I know some non-veteran agents that do that really well, and they've refined their USP to that. Makes sense? So USP, another word for it is just value proposition. What is your value proposition that makes you stand out? See, so, and then analyzing your style. This is what also makes you memorable. And so like for myself, one of them is I tend to be rather laid back and sarcastic, like with my people. A lot of times I joke a lot. I don't take things too seriously. And within that military demographic, like even within them, I have people that I just relate to more because of that, right? And a way I've recently heard this described as is it's easy in real estate to say, hey, what do you do? I'm in real estate. I'm a realtor, I have a real estate license, however you want to put it. But then it's always, what's the and? Real estate and what? Right? So like for myself, it's real estate and I love most things outdoors, whether it's hiking, kayaking, fishing, things like that. So like kind of think of what is your and then how can you kind of tie those things together? So if my and is being outdoors and I go find and connect with people, like let's say if I'm not targeting military, if I am targeting military, I can go find the military people that like spending time outdoors. Now I'm narrowing that niche down lower. Now I have a very defined group of people that I want to go find military members that like to spend time outdoors. Because a lot of them like video games, and I don't play that many video games anymore. But so if I say that's now my niche, I develop my brand around that niche, all of a sudden I'm the person that they have to think about when it comes time to buying or selling real estate. That's our end goal, is how do we get in front of the people using these things in order to target the right group of people to then buy or sell real estate with us, or rather to become friends with us that will happen to buy and sell real estate. So same thing, fill out, you'll have a personal style worksheet in the course materials, which if you haven't seen, Abigail has dropped them in the chat a few times in there, so you can grab them off of there. But fill out that personal style worksheet so you can kind of understand more about yourself if it's one of those things that you're just not sure on yet. And this is something that you may end up changing your brand over time. When I very first started in real estate, I didn't think I would actually work with that many military members. I don't know why I didn't think that, but it became part of my thing as we went. And so it's something that can change and pivot as you start to work with people. Brand identity statement, the same thing. This is where you're actually writing it down. We're actually, again, getting that clarity around what your brand is, because then once you're clear on what it is, it makes it so much easier to communicate it. Actually, 2 good books. I meant to put a slide on here, but I didn't. So I'll drop them in the chat actually. So one is called Building Your Story Brand by Donald Miller. In that book, he'll actually help you you kind of need to have at least some idea of who you are and who you help and things like that. And then that book will help you actually refine your message. Because he says the same thing about clarity, kind of that clarity is power. It helps you come up with a clear statement of what your business represents and how to reach those people by making them the center of your business. And then another is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. This one is a very famous book. I think that's how you spell Simon Sinek. That one's a very famous book, but also a very good one of the same thing of finding your why in your business, and your why is going to end up being what you build everything around. Again, it's not incredibly simple to do. It also don't not do business because you're like, I don't know what my why is. Don't get hung up on that. But as you do business and you refine your why, your business is just going to start turbocharging because you're getting a more clear message to the right people. All right, so marketing your brand. So I literally saw someone today say that new agents shouldn't focus on listings, and that drove me nuts, but that's okay. When you are either just starting out or kind of in that growth phase, right? Like, we don't want to necessarily be turning down any buyers or sellers. Like, I have a brand new agent who he's already turning down buyers just because he just doesn't want to work with them. And it's like, okay, like, that's fine. There's some other things I would do instead, but he just doesn't want to work with buyers, and that's great. So he knows to market his brand to go get sellers, right? And that's what he's working on. Take one house and turn that into more sellers. And then he's taking that listing right there. It says marketing your listings for buyers. What he actually does is he's getting buyers and sellers, but then he's just handing the buyers off to someone else for a referral fee. But don't think that marketing your listings can only bring in buyers. That's what this kind of almost would make you think. I would actually argue marketing your listings will actually help you bring in more sellers versus buyers. And that was that point earlier about, well, if I have a listing, should I keep marketing that neighborhood? To some extent, yes, bring in more sellers because you can work those remotely, and then refer out the buyers if you need to. Decide what kind of customers you want. Again, that's when you get really clear on who you want to serve and who you are and who you serve best. That's going to go a long ways in that piece. Mainly because, again, then if they don't fit your criteria, refer them out, right? If they don't fit your criteria, refer them out, get a 30-35% referral fee for it. And then pick the best marketing vehicles for those people. If you are targeting, I know someone who specifically targets people in the later stages of life, let's put it that way, right? Like, they're even in retirement home and they really need to be worried about estate planning for the next phase of what happens to their family. Those aren't the people that I'm targeting with YouTube ads or YouTube videos, right? Like, understand who your people are and target to them. If I'm going to go target a younger generation, I'm probably not sending them mail, right? You can kind of figure out who you're targeting and pick the best marketing vehicles for those people.
Hi,
Go ahead.
this is Shani.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a question regarding the previous slide.
Mhm.
So marketing your brand for sellers and buyers. So do you suggest having a completely different strategy for buyers and sellers, because the requirements for sellers may be different than requirement for buyers?
I would say broad strategy is the same. So, like, let's say if I were going to go start a YouTube channel, for instance, right? Like some sort of new marketing, like a YouTube channel, I'm going to probably make it seller, or, well, actually, I take that back with YouTube. YouTube, I would actually kind of go more buyer oriented first and then tie it into sellers, right? Because we see, like, with YouTube channels, what gets a lot of traffic is videos that are like best neighborhoods to buy in Santa Clara County or in Silicon Valley. What are the best neighborhoods to live in Silicon Valley? And those types of videos do really well. At the same time, that'll drive traffic, which then gets my channel attention, which will then help me find the sellers. So just typically, with the MREA model, we tend to go after or prospect for listings first. And I would say most of the marketing you'll do in any of these channels can be kind of dual. Does that help? Basically, I would say I wouldn't focus too hard on one or the other, but your call to action, sometimes I would make them very seller based first, of saying, especially right now, people want to know the value of their homes as the market is changing. It's probably the number one thing you can probably target. You'll find some buyers along the way as well. Sound good?
Yeah, sure. Because I know YouTube is where we may not have to do a lot. It's not so much expensive, but if it comes to other forms of marketing, for example, flyers and those, then it can be different for buyers and sellers because the requirements can be different. So
yeah, actually, that's a good point about costs. Typically, like, especially if you went to like a marketing company and said, I need more seller leads, those leads cost a lot. It just costs more to get to sellers when you are in a seller's or a buyer's market, right? Is that when you're in a buyer's market, buyers are easier to find, sellers are harder to find. So like marketing companies will spend a lot of money developing those funnels to sell those leads back to agents, right? And it can be more expensive to go after sellers. At the same time, sellers are what helps us not control the market, but understand the market the best, right? And so they can cost more, but honestly, unless you're actually buying leads and other than geographic farming, the cost ends up kind of being the same, unless you're actually out purchasing marketing services. Make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Like I said, we're going to come up on one where we'll list out a whole bunch of different avenues. I think there's a couple more slides somewhere in there. We list out a whole bunch of different avenues. But this one's, whoops, keep clicking the wrong thing. I like this for 6 methods for marketing your brand. Community involvement can be such a big one, right? And we're going to break each of these down a little bit more, but community involvement, using media in general, mail out, so geographic farm, using signs, automated marketing. That one gets weird in here. But then the internet is the best thing since since sliced bread, about how to do actual marketing for either free to or a low cost. So we're going to talk about all these real quick. Let's start with community involvement. So this is literally sponsoring the Little League team and doing charities and working with social organizations, business organizations. This is you being that most well-known person in that community. And a community doesn't have to be a geographic community, right? Because I know agents that live in an area that they don't really want to be in forever, so they don't want to establish that community. Also think of this as like a demographic. It doesn't have to be geographic, it could be demographic. So like I said, myself, military, I could go be very involved as a military specific agent within that community, helping with all these different things. But basically, the more that people see you be a human and more that the people see you involved in all these, the more likely it is that they'll call you when it's time to do the business. This is all pretty basic idea stuff, right? Like, one is you want to systemize this. So if you go do a community event, take notes after what went well, what didn't go so well, and then make a checklist of how to do it in the future. And then go reach out to those other sponsors, right? Build communities around business right now are huge. You'll see more and more coming out from MAP's business about building communities of business owners. Because if you get to go know every business owner in a community, and you're the only agent that's on the top of their mind, you're doing pretty well, right? Because business owners know who's buying and selling and moving in and out of a community. This is personal Market Center award giveaways. I'm not sure what they meant by that, but award giveaways are huge right now, right? Like, people go get a item of high value, tell everyone about it, that you are going to auction off or not auction off, you're going to raffle off a Peloton, right? I think they're about $2,000. But if I can get 200 name, email, and phone numbers, was it worth it to spend $2,000 on that Peloton? Because out of those 200, there's probably someone there thinking about buying or selling a house, right? And what I'm going to do is say, on May 15th, you have to call me, and on that day, you're going to call me between 8 and 5, and whoever calls me that I have a conversation with, you're getting a raffle ticket, right? And then you might need some people to help you do it in order to get 200, 300, 400 people on that list. And when you're having that conversation, you're asking those basic questions. Are you a homeowner? Are you curious about the value of your home? Have you considered selling your home in the next 12 months? No, great. Okay, bye. Sorry, Aunt Judy, gotta go. I got my phone's ringing. Like, go to the next one, right? And so you're just going through these. Right there where it says write a letter to the editor, instead of that one, I actually like the idea of go write for a community newsletter. If you're a writer, go find a community newsletter that you can write. If there isn't one, create a community newsletter. All these, that Peloton thing I just said, these newsletter, all these different things were covered at MegaCamp. So get with your team leaders in your offices to see if you have access to the MegaCamp videos. They're available until I think October 20th. Get with them to see if you can get your hands on those videos to learn what are these agents doing to do these things. Let's see. Nicholas says, oh, MC meaning announcer, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Personal MC award giveaways, maybe. I don't know. I like the one I made up. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's like when you do sponsored events, a lot of times when they have the raffles or the giveaway, they need somebody to announce it on the microphone.
Yeah, maybe.
So whenever I do that, I always volunteer to be the MC so I can talk to people and they can see me as sort of being a position of power.
I have a family member that's a big agent down in Calaveras County. She goes to all the events, any event, she's there, and she's one of the top agents in the county. And what she'll do is she'll go to like a silent auction, and at the very top of she'll go to every single item in the silent auction. At the very top, she makes sure she's the first one to write her name. So it's her name, Century 21. Like, trying to get her a KW, that's a different story. But it's like her name, Century 21, her name, Century 21, her name, Century 21 on everything. So then everybody else that comes and signs up, they look at who's the first one on there and look at the price, and there's her name, Century 21. She ends up winning a bunch of them by accident. And then she's like, well, now I have client gifts for the next 6 months. Like, oh, great, you won a sailboat cruise or whatever. Like, congrats. And it's the same idea. It just puts her out there. Like, everybody knows her because of that. But there's a team leader in San Antonio. His whole thing is be the most well-known person in your market. The same thing here. Be the most well-known person in whatever community you have. Just start becoming the most well-known person, and you'll create more conversations. Conversations always lead to business. Okay, media advertising. What they are talking about with media advertising being a few years back is they're talking about magazines. They're talking about more traditional media. I can almost guarantee you nobody here needs to be spending money on TV ads. I know someone spending tons of money on TV ads, and they do get business, but I guarantee there's other ways for them to get more business with those same dollars. There is kind of a change in the way we're absorbing media now, like with Hulu, for instance. You can actually now really start to target. If I created a commercial on Hulu, I can tell it, hey, I want to target people that are homeowners. Well, you can't literally target this way, but you can tell it, I want a homeowners in 95062, right? And try to really narrow down who's seeing that ad. Whereas before, if I did a TV ad, it would have to go to everyone watching that within 100 miles. But now we can start narrowing it down. So that could be good. But for the most part, for media advertising these days, I think most agents, it'll end up being mailers. Whether you're doing just postcards to a geographic farm, that's fantastic. Some people do physical newsletters. Like, I don't know why I just looked around. This is in my office. I have one in my office. It's someone it's just a newsletter that goes out to the neighborhood once a month. It's like 4 pages. That's not much, but they print those out and they spend a lot of money printing them out. But it's so high quality content that they're getting a lot of that feedback back from the community, and they're door knocking and handing out those newsletters as well. Be consistent. Placement matters. Right, second to bottom on there, track your response rate. You do not understand how many agents are spending money on anything and not knowing exactly what their return on investment is. Any one of these that we're talking about, if you're spending money on when we go back to this one here, we're talking about sponsorships, like with a little league team or something, track your rate of return on it. Any piece of business you get, you should be able to track back what that source was. And if you start to realize, let's say you did 24 deals last year and only one came from the $10,000 you spent on sponsorships, you'll have to do the math to figure out, was the $10,000 worth the $20,000 commission that you got? It may not have been. Like, that is nice that it's 2 to 1. But could that $10,000 have been spent on something else that was going to get a 4 to 1, a 10 to 1? Facebook ads, we're seeing 40 to 1 return on investments, right? Which would you rather have spent the money on? It's called holding every dollar accountable, but you can only do that by tracking your response rate. Put on here, let's talk about shopping carts. I know tons of agents that love shopping carts. And what's interesting is when I see them, especially in my town, the people that have the shopping cart ads, I don't know them. And that's a bad sign that I live in my town, in my zip code. I'm also a realtor and I don't know who those people are. That's a bad sign. The shopping cart ads, the bus bench signs, those need to be, my personal opinion is, those should be after you've already established yourself in a market, if that makes sense, right? You want to have already had the established, and now you're adding on top of it. Otherwise, again, it's not to say that they don't work. It's not to say it's bad. Is it the best use of those dollars, especially in a growth phase of a business? Mail outs. Okay, so this is actually really what I was talking about, where I said went from media, or I included this in media. Mail outs right there, hand deliver for better response rate. The people I know doing newsletters at a high level, they door knock and they drop off the newsletters, right? Like it's especially now, I don't know if any of you have gone door knocking kind of after the worst part of COVID. People are answering the doors and they want to talk. We have agents that are actually tracking it that are like 35% or more open rate, that for every 3 doors they knock on, someone is talking to them. I had one go door knocking the other day that she's taking her marketing material around her neighborhood and door knocking with it. Door knocked at 6, this is just on Friday, 6 p.m. on Friday. Guy answers the door. He was super mad. And he was like, "Why are you knocking on my door at dinner time on a Friday?" And she's like, "Oh, never mind. Like, I'll leave." And he's like, "No. Like, you are not, you're not getting off that easy. Tell me why you're here." And she's like, "Well, I'm a real estate agent. Why are you knocking on my door?" "I'm talking to people about their home values, blah, 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 blah." And he goes, "You won't believe it. We were just talking about, we should probably sell our home." And so it went from being super mad about it to being super friendly about it. She got a listing appointment. I think she's going over there today. It's just kind of funny that door knocking helps. So do your marketing, send out the mailers, and then also door knock. This is that layering cake, right? Let's layer on top, on top, on top. Leveraging seasons. I mean, don't send out, personal opinion, don't send out the ones that say, "Don't forget to set your clocks back." But those ones, football schedules tend to work a lot, but leveraging seasons and events, yeah, absolutely. Piggyback off other people's stuff in order to, or other events in order to kind of get more traction with people. Signs, we're going to basically skip over this one. Your sign should be simple. Your sign should not be broken. That's really what this is saying. If you have a sign out there in public, please make it legible. That's basically all this is saying. Okay. I'm having you ignore this whole thing about automated marketing. And you can see why at the bottom there, it talks about marketing through a fax was costing 3 to 9 cents per fax. I mean, if you send out faxes right now, you'll get a lot of attention because like we have a fax machine at work. I don't know how it works, but if we received one, I would definitely read that fax. But yeah, we're going to skip over this section in general just because we're going to hit it a lot harder when we get to internet, because basically the internet has replaced all of these. Like I said, I wanted to leave these in here though, because it made me laugh. That it's like, oh, faxes. It was only 6 years ago we were talking about faxes, apparently. It feels a lot longer than that. Okay, but then we go into the internet. Every agent needs a website. I don't know how much more clear I can make this. It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be custom, but every agent needs a website. I literally met with an independent brokerage yesterday to talk to them about the power of coming to Keller Williams. They don't have a website. They're doing a massive amount of business and they don't even have a website. The only way you can really get information on them is through Facebook, which is great, but like every agent needs a website. On top of that, every website needs to have the ability to search for properties. If you don't have the ability to search for properties, get a new website. And assuming you're with Keller Williams, get a new website and use ours, right? There's a reason we built the websites that we did, the ones that you get in your monthly fee. We built them the way we did because they're shaped after Zillow. Zillow is a powerful website. We're duplicating what they're doing. But it shocks me how many agents there are in the Bay Area that don't have websites. Your approach should evolve with technology. Have a website. But what I want to do is on this next one. So this is my list. This is my personal list that I made just for this class about this is where I think you can spend time on the internet right now for free and market your brand, get listings, etc. Actually, hang on one second. My window just closed. Hold on, we're bringing it back. Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so Facebook groups, still a very powerful thing. I know there are multiple agents out there. Even if you think that there's already a Facebook group in your community, you can probably still go get a Facebook group, teach people things in your community, sometimes talk about real estate, sometimes talk about everything else. What are the happenings in your community? Why should people move to your community? Why should, like, let's say you're in Milpitas. Why should people move to Milpitas? What are homes like in Milpitas? Where are the best restaurants in Milpitas? Like, talk about those things around that community, and you can grow a pretty vibrant community in Facebook groups still. Like, they're still a pretty powerful thing. Instagram and TikTok. If you are thinking, I never want to do a TikTok because I don't want to look like an idiot dancing to some silly little tune, that's cool. I'm with you. Even though if you find me on TikTok, I have one where I'm an idiot in it, but I'm okay with it. But they are great at getting massive reach. All you have to do is figure out, how do you communicate who you are through TikTok? And if you're not the person that's going to do the little dancey thing and pointing all around, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, get on TikTok for 5 minutes and you'll see. If that's not you, don't do it. Like, it's so painfully obvious to tell when agents are doing it because they're trying to catch a viral trend. My favorite people, I follow realtors on TikTok and Instagram, and my favorite ones are the ones that tell me about their market because I want to learn what's happening in their market. And I guarantee there are buyers and sellers that are thinking just like me. So the most popular ones I know aren't doing the little dancey stuff. They're talking about the market. We're coming back to YouTube actually, because we're going to hit that one pretty hard. Email newsletters. Again, this is one that they brought up in MegaCamp. Social media is getting difficult in terms of most of the people you're going to interact with or view on social media are not people that you know. They're the creators. They're the ones they're the ones not trying to do the goofy stuff. They're the ones executing the goofy stuff really well. Your friends, though, maybe they're starting to get over social media, and if you were to email them instead, they're more likely to see your stuff because they. Hold on, just a quick question. You can see my screen, right? Conrad, hook me up.
Yes, now we
Okay,
can.
good. Okay, good. I just got a little notice saying that you can see, or that you couldn't see my screen. I just want to make sure.
It was
Okay,
like
so.
couple of minutes ago we couldn't.
No, okay. Well, at least we're back. So there you go. So for email newsletters, it's a way to get in front of people, and they're getting incredible response rates. And companies, huge companies, are buying newsletters from people for $100 million because the power of email is incredibly powerful, right? Email lists are incredibly powerful. If they're spending that much money, it's because they know people are actually reading them. So if that's something you want to focus on, by all means. Website and blog, still a great way to, go become the website that's, homes in Santa Clara Valley, homes in Silicon Valley. Those are names that you're not going to get for your website, but kind of do that thing and talk everything about Santa Clara. What's going on with the Niners, what's going on with the Sharks, talk about anything about you, but do it consistently and build a blog around it. And it's still a powerful thing. Podcasts are also really good because people want to consume in different ways. And so if you're someone that you hate writing, but you love talking, start a podcast. They're fantastic. I put free with a couple stars on that one. They're not really free to run. Like if you end up having to pay for hosting and things like that. It's relatively inexpensive, but for full transparency there. But going back to YouTube. So the number one search engine in the world is Google. The number two search engine in the world is YouTube. Google owns YouTube. Right. So you're getting the power when you're putting videos on YouTube, you're getting the power of Google being tied in with YouTube. So when I start videos that say, here's the top 3 reasons you should move into the Willow Glen neighborhood, all of a sudden Google is seeing that. So when someone goes and search for homes in Willow Glen, Willow Glen, Santa Clara County, or whatever it is, it's going to start showing my video in their results, right? So you're gonna kind of harness the power of both, and it's free, and it's actually really time unintensive. You only need to do really 1 video a week and do it consistently over even just 6 or 7 weeks, and you could start seeing results. Again, I'm going to reference back to Mega Camp again, but there was she's actually a team leader that wanted to show her agents how easy it is to do. So she started a YouTube channel. She released 1 video a week. It was those ones just like moving to Silicon Valley, moving, neighborhoods in Almaden, I don't know, of doing just basic videos like that. She did them once a week for 7 weeks and she got a client. She actually closed a client out of it after just 7 weeks. And so incredibly cheap, it's free, incredibly simple to do. You could probably use your phone for the most part. You could use your phone and some basic lighting that you could probably find a good spot in your office to do it, but highly, 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 highly recommend that. But again, if you're uncomfortable on video, maybe don't do it right away. At the bottom there, put find the medium that works for you, whether it's a video, writing, or audio. Everyone kind of falls into one of those. And then double down on that. But then a lot of times you can repurpose that across multiple mediums, right? So if I create a video, I can pay a virtual assistant basically $10 probably to take that entire script, turn it into a blog post, put it on my website, right? Like repurpose the content you're creating multiple times. It's just going to help build. This is so important. You have to have content that the public wants, and you have to make your sites and content findable. Findable is really easy with social media now for the most part, but you have to have content that the public wants. That's why with YouTube, the algorithm kind of shifted. It went from just post as often as you can on YouTube, post 7 days a week if you can. And then that started to change to say, no, do one high quality, and I don't necessarily mean high quality visually, but like one content rich piece of content a week on YouTube, that's going to go somewhere. With social media, it's more like 5 to 7. You want to post 5 to 7 times a week, so almost daily. You can go down on the quality a little bit as long as you're still focused on what people want, right? Like, again, we're not looking for movies produced, right? We're looking for simple stuff of what do people want to learn about your area? That's the easiest way to think about, or the home buying process, or, you know, being military, buying homes, new loan programs coming out for people with rough credit, or people that don't have 2 years of W-2s, things like that. What can you talk about that the public, and more importantly, the people you know, that they actually want to hear about? All right, so marketing your listings. A note on here, so much has changed, but I wanted to leave the slides in here to talk about the differences and create some talking points around it. This talks about how the best methods for selling houses was 43% was the internet, 33% were other agents, and 9% were yard signs. These numbers have drastically changed. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but if you look at the NAR statistics of home buyers and sellers, or the NAR study on home buyers and sellers, it's something like the internet now is like over 90%. Most people are using the internet to find their home. You do have their agents, but a lot of times the clients are finding the homes first, but your agent network is still important. Your yard sign, not very important anymore. Doesn't mean that homes don't get sold off the yard sign, but it's going down every year. So much of it is the internet. And so in this part here, most methods don't work to sell homes. Instead, they bring you buyer business. Again, I would shift that. I like half of that, where it says most methods don't work to sell homes. Most of the marketing you do is not going to sell your home. Your home is going to sell. Your marketing is putting it in the best light possible, but for the most part, we know it's going to be sold because it's on the MLS, it's in front of buyers. You want to put it in the best position to get the top price. And then it says, instead, they bring you buyer business. I would just said, instead, they bring you business. My marketing of my listings is going to help bring me another buyer and another seller. I don't like that they keep going to buyers. It's kind of funny. Use a plan that balances both goals of both trying to sell the home and bringing in business. This is the 14-step plan. This is why I left in there, because things change, and I just thought it was interesting. But for the most part, like, I wouldn't do all 14 of these steps necessarily like that, but for the most part, even though things have changed, it's fairly the same, right? You want to stage your properties. You need signs when able. You need to use signs. Flyers in the house. Some people still like to, have you ever done an open house without a flyer? I've had people walk in and it was kind of awkward because they walked in, they wanted a flyer and they didn't have any. They literally just wanted something to hold, like a little safety blanket. You know, I want to do open houses. Although I'm not doing faxes or voice broadcasts necessarily, I am going to do emails to my sphere or in my past clients. Target marketing, like all those things are still true. But how many of them exist if we're in 14 days or less days on market, right? Some of those we start to kind of trim off a little bit. But again, 80-20 rule, focus on the 20 that are most important or bring in the most business. Again, yes, your offices are important, right? You're going to network with other agents. We've been stressing this so much lately, especially coming out of like a post-COVID world. Market with other agents, or sorry, network with other agents. Your agent body as a whole is going to do much better when you're talking to other agents, both in your office and out. Talk to people from other companies, go to the marketing meetings at the MLS, go on tour and preview property and meet agents. When you write offers, you're going to be a lot happier. When they write offers, you're going to be a lot happier because they're going to be like, hey, remember me? And you're going to have a better experience generally. Holding agent events in your listings, it's something I had never thought about. Two more down. Hold classes in your listings. Super interesting idea, especially if you do one as a flip. That what if you did, what if you did like a renovate to sell, and then you invited other agents over to look at what you did, and you actually had it broken down, like maybe with a binder or an iPad presentation, to say, here's all the work we did, here's how it worked, here's the company I worked with in order to do it so it didn't come out of my pocket. Holy cow, could be very powerful. I like it. Offer a higher commission split. We're starting to see this more. We saw a lot of pressure coming down on the commission split to the buyer side. I think we're going to start seeing that neutralize, and especially when you go look at new home builds, all of a sudden they're actually paying us again. It's pretty funny how they want us again. Okay. This is my opinion. This is talking about using the internet. MLS listings must be complete and accurate. Use at least 14 photos per listing and use virtual tours and videos. If you are not putting in all the details in the MLS, you're doing your client a disservice. If you are 14 photos, like that's fine. Like I don't necessarily care about the number of photos, but if you're not using a professional photographer, like that should be a crime to take such a big commission and not use a $500 professional photographer, right? And then the idea of virtual tours and videos. There was, for a while there was kind of an argument about you shouldn't do virtual tours. You're giving them no reason to come to the house. We are now in the phase of life where people can get all the information off the internet. They are looking for the information. Quit hiding it from them. We need to give them the information, or they're going to go find another way to get it, or just pass you altogether. We don't want that. I'm actually going to skip this. Here we go. We're going into this one. And so this is exactly what I was saying, where they're talking about when you're marketing your listing and we're trying to bring in business. Again, ignore the fact that it says buyer business. You're trying to also bring in another seller and another buyer. We want to maximize our marketing on listings. And so I will, even if it's a complete fixer, I did a fixer upper campaign that was probably bigger than a normal listing marketing, because I want to find out who else has a fixer to sell. Because if you got a fixer, maybe I want to buy it, or maybe I have an investor that wants to buy it, or that we want to flip it together, do a JV on it and flip it. But something that I wanted to change on here, but I really wanted to point this out, was exactly what I was saying on the last slide. Don't disqualify your listing by giving too much information is an old school of thought. That's actually how Zillow got put in control of where they are right now, right? Is that literally, oh my God, I can't think of his name. Rich Barton, who started Zillow, the reason he started it was he had already done Expedia, because he tried to book a ticket through a travel agency, and he realized they were accessing a database. While he's talking to them, they were accessing a database. He said, why do I have to go through this person? Created a company that could go just directly to the airlines on its own, right? Instead of having to go through a travel agency. So the same thing happened with Zillow. He wanted the value of his home. He had to call an agent. That agent was like, oh, well, I have to come over. I have to see the home. He's like, why do you have to see my home? It's statistics, right? So agents withholding information is what put Zillow in the position they're in now. So although in some of my marketing, I'm not going to put all the information, I don't want to withhold it from the buyers or the sellers, right? If I'm doing that, you're just creating a roadblock that's going to essentially put you out of business later on. And then it says, if you don't have any listings, advertise HUD homes. Advertise other listings from your market center. Go find an agent with a great looking listing that you want to market. Ask them if you can do some marketing to help bring them a buyer. I ask that question all the time because I run a lot of Facebook ads. I've had like 2 or 3 ever turn that down. They don't care. They want exposure for their clients, especially now that the market's changed. Systematic marketing. This is really getting into like building your business, right? How do you actually systemize doing this so that you're not spending all your time on it? Like, what if you could do this one time a month, plan out all your marketing, or one time a week, plan out all your marketing? We already talked about this with Mets. We've always talked about a 12-to-2 conversion rate. It's a little bit more like 10-to-1. So if you have a database, actually the next slide will break down the numbers, but if you have a database of 300 people, you should be able to get 30 transactions a year out of that if you're touching them 33 times a year, and 4 of those are phone calls, right? So it's like we have to have a whole system built in there. That's another pillar in this class. I think it's session like 6 or 7, where it's talking about your database, or actually it might be the next one. It's talking about your database. But then 50 contacts in your database equals 1 transaction out of haven't met. So think that geographic farm. Excuse me. So this is breaking it down to say if your total transaction goal is 36, you need 180 mets and you need 300 haven't mets, right? And so this is pretty simple math to break this down. Again, I would change the ratios a little bit. And I mean, if you end up getting a 12-2 instead of a 10-1, but you plan for 10-1, it's free money. It's like free business. And if you end up getting too much business, you can call me and send me your checks. I'm fine with it. And then I like that best practice, double it. Like if your goal, if you do this math and it says you need 180 mets and 300 haven't mets, go ahead, just double that now, make it 360 and 600. All right, it's a good goal. You always want to be trying to grow bigger, not necessarily just settle for what the math breaks out to. Because when the market changes, like it's doing now, you get yourself in trouble. Make sense? Honestly, you could skip straight to number 3 right there, which is don't overthink it. The quantity of your marketing is more important than perfect marketing. If you're getting hung up on this font is off, I don't love this font, I printed it and the picture's a little bit fuzzy. Obviously, if it's egregiously bad, that's different. But if you're getting hung up on these little details and you're not doing the marketing, you're never going to progress. It's better to get the marketing out there and see that people don't notice those things. Like it's so much easier to be critical on your own business, much more so than anyone's actually being critical on your business. They want to see pretty pictures. They want information about houses. I know that because HGTV exists. They want to see inside of houses. They want to see pretty pictures. They want some information. Just get that to them. Don't worry about the little details. Again, this is going to get covered in the next section or in the next session. So we're going to skip over that. And I mean, memorable and persuasive marketing. What's really working right now is being memorable by being authentic, right? And that's kind of a change within the internet, right? Is that I can, again, I'm sorry to keep going back to YouTube, but I can go be myself on YouTube and people get to see that, so that when they show up in person, it's the same person, or when they call me, it's the same person on the other end of the phone that they saw in the video. So that is memorable, or that's really more persuasive. The memorable piece, yeah, sometimes it pays to be funny. Sometimes it pays to do something a little bit different that makes you stand out from the competition. But something that can be completely memorable is print your flyers on, like something this color, right? Like don't print your flyers on white paper and put it in a white envelope with a little American flag sticker or stamp. Like, make it memorable, make them stand out a little bit more. You're just trying to catch, use the odd sizes. I used to do that with a company called Core Fact. I would send out the jumbo postcards because they're huge, right? Everyone else is sending envelope size stuff. I want to send out something big. It at least makes it stand out from the other mail that they're grabbing out of the mailbox. All right, so putting it all together, who learned something through this that, so this was an hour and 15 minutes. Who learned something that they hadn't thought of before? Connor. It was right at the time. That was good.
I didn't understand the difference between marketing and prospecting. Now that I understand the difference, now I can balance it out, like you mentioned, balance it out in my weekly schedule so that I can, approach both sides of it.
Yeah, perfect. Then you literally got the whole point of this. The rest was icing. The rest was butter. Like the whole point was understand that there's a difference between the two and balance them. You shouldn't be 100% one. You shouldn't be 100% the other. Maybe not even 50-50 at first. You want to be pivoted one side the other, and then combine them, right? That you can do the prospecting, then send some marketing out behind it. It's just going to add layers to that cake. Cool. Anybody else? All right. So just remember 3-hour time blocks before noon. I talked to an agent the other day, again, just someone trying to bring into the company. She closed 26 deals last year, and it was her first year of real estate. This is in the East Bay. So it's not like this is where people can hide behind, oh, it was Houston. No, this was in the East Bay. She sold 26 homes her first year. And I was trying to meet with her, and I said, hey, can you meet at 10 o'clock tomorrow? And she said, no, that's in my lead gen time. I was like, when's your lead gen time? She said 9 to 12. Great. And she has it set 9, 10, 11, 12, 3 hours. She's never taken this class. She's never taken any Keller Williams class. She knew that's how hard she has to work in order to get that business coming in. So she blocks it out in the morning because her kids bug her in the afternoon, right? So they go drop the kids off at school. She goes and gets back to work, hits it for 3 hours. She's got to go pick up her kids again at like 1 or 2. And so she's just figured out that's what it took to then sell 26 homes in her first year. So 3 hours a day before noon. It's just afternoon. That's when the title company, that's when the buyers are waking up. The title companies have figured it out. That's when they're going to start bugging you for all the problems coming up during the day. So cool. Well, I hope this was helpful for you. You can send me an email if you've got any questions or anything, but otherwise, like I said, the next session is, I think it's on database, if I remember right. Actually, I could look real quick. Give me 1 second. I gotta hit this back button 1,000 times. Oh my goodness. The next session should be on, leveraging your database. You want free business, that's where it is. If you're new and you want business, that's where you go. They already know you, they already like you. You just got to get them to trust you a little bit more about knowing that you are the right person to talk to about real estate. But your database is where the easy business is. So cool. All right, well, have a good rest of your day. If you didn't do your lead gen earlier, you could go do it now. Otherwise, kind of like I said at the beginning of the session, if you didn't do it today, what can you do to remove the roadblocks to make sure you get it done tomorrow? Cool.
Good. Thank you.
All right, guys. Yeah, have a good rest of your day.